Hey everyone, Sean O'Connor here from Macabre Daily, and I have got two superstars with me. We have got Tommy. Now, Tommy, I've messed this up so many times. It's Tommy Spero.
It is. You got it right this time.
How many times have I called you Sparrow? And you know what? You're bigger than me, so I'm glad that it never came to close because I would have lost. Tommy Spero is, without a doubt, the premier pop horror artist on Long Island. He always makes fun of me because he goes, "Do you know any other?" And I tell him to shut up when he says that. That's not the important part. Tommy's works right behind me right here, so you can just drink in that loveliness. And then we have Adam Wakefield, who is none other than the author of The Usher.
Hi. If
you don't have this book, I don't know what you're doing with your life. If you're not buying this art and purchasing this book, then you're not invited to my karate-themed birthday party. How about that?
We'll be there.
You'll both be there. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. February, of course, is George Romero's birthday month. And we just celebrated his birthday on the 4th. And I just figured, you know what would be better than getting some good friends together and talking about Dawn of the Dead, because it happens to be Tommy and Adam's favorite film. Sure. I love it. My favorite film is Jaws. You know, full transparency. That's good, okay? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Definitely. Yeah, it's a wonderful film.
But we have to talk about Dawn of the Dead, and I'm sure we'll talk about Night of and Day of as well. So I invited these two gentlemen here with me, so let's get to it. Got a little bit of a sketched out itinerary so that we capture some of the finer points. But let's start off with the most important question, which is, when did you discover this film? How old were you, and under what circumstances? Because this was kind of, this was still around, and I'm old enough that it was a drive-in classic. So I'm curious to see when everybody saw it. Adam, let's start with you. What's your experience?
Sure. My experience was, the first time I ever saw Dawn of the Dead was at my, I think I was probably like 11, my 11th birthday party. Previous to that, I found the shell case VHS copy in my uncle's tapes, and and it was the picture of Roger on it, and it was just kind of creepy. And I said, "What is that?" And he's like, "I can't send that home with you. Your parents are gonna kill me." But he did, because he's a cool uncle. And we watched it at my birthday party with a few of my friends, and I mean, y'all have seen it. You know, just out of the gate, we were frozen.
At 11, you watched it?
11, yeah. And I remember all of us who were probably thought we were a lot tougher than we were until that night, all banding together to walk to the bathroom at one point. So shout out to the friends at that party. That's the first time I saw it.
That is a very cool 11-year-old birthday party. But I wouldn't have gotten a wink of sleep that night, for sure. Tommy, how about you? Your first experience?
So I actually saw the movie during its original theatrical release in 1979. I was 9, so I am dating myself a little bit. Fortunate enough to have an older brother who always used me as an excuse to get out of the house. So, exposed to a lot of crazy rock concerts and a lot of movies that I shouldn't have seen at that age. But yeah, I saw it at a theater in Flushing, Queens called the Prospect Movie Theater. And it's interesting. I actually have a photo. I will send it to you, Sean.
Please.
So when this goes up out to the masses, you can show a screenshot of it. That actually, it says Dawn of the Dead on the marquee. There's like a site for old defunct movie theaters, and they actually have a picture of that theater with Dawn of the Dead on the marquee.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, I was really young and extremely impressionable. It was probably the first horror movie that I actually saw on the big screen. A horror movie at that scale. Yeah. So definitely had a huge effect on me.
Before I reveal when I came into the film, I need to ask you both. Was this the first in the trilogy that you saw, or had you seen Night of previously?
No, I saw Night of the Living Dead one afternoon. When I was probably like 7. It was on TV, and I was supposed to be napping upstairs in my parents' bed, and I just watched Night of the Living Dead instead. And that says a lot about me, probably. It's a really defining moment in my life. But yeah, that's That's where I first got into it.
It definitely explains why you are now writing horror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Tommy? Did you watch them in order or?
It's hard to say. I don't really recall. I was into horror movies and Famous Monsters magazine already by that point. So I might have seen it on TV, probably in a heavily edited version, prior to that. But it's a little foggy, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, you and I are roughly the same age. Those years got a little foggy for us, but boy, they were fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I came into Dawn of this was one of the VHS. I didn't see it on the big screen initially. I since have corrected that mistake, but I came into this film through house parties.
Okay.
My buddy Eric was obsessed with this movie, and he always had it in it, always playing. But he was the kid who always had the house parties. So I'd grab like 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there, and it would always piss me off because I wanted to see the whole thing, but of course I also wanted to talk to girls and sneak beers and stuff like that. So I came into it piecemeal, but when I finally did sit down and watch it from start to finish, it was just I didn't know what to say. I hadn't seen a film like that was so visceral and kind of like it wasn't like what was on the big screen when I saw it, because that would have been about early mid 80s. So we were going to see Commando, and we were going to see films like that, Cobra and Stallone and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then you see Dawn of the Dead, and you're just like, what even is this? And it opens up, like, I'm going to steal this from Stephen Graham Jones. I heard him say it the other day that he saw Scream and it recalibrated the folds of his brain. So I'm going to steal that from him.
Yeah.
This is one of those films that recalibrates the folds of your brain, and you're just like, I got to get more of this. And then that opens up the door to stuff like, Fulci and maybe Giallo. And, like it's like a domino effect where you can start dining out on things that you're not seeing on the big screen, but you probably could find at the video store, which was a big part of this film in particular, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think that time period, the early 80s, which was my teenage years, was when video stores blew up and there was a video store on every corner. So, most of the movies that, I would say influenced me, I had seen on videotape. Other than like, I saw Friday the 13th, in the theater again, and we snuck in, we were all way too young to get into a movie like that. And, there was a theater we could do that. We could, pay for one innocent movie and then sneak in to go see something else, so, but yeah, the videotapes definitely, and then having seen Dawn on videotape and, other movies, that time was like fantastic for getting exposed to stuff that you couldn't necessarily see on the big screen.
It was great because, you would go to the video store and you would leave with a stack of tapes this high and you had 3 days to watch it. So you got to it, now with streaming, I spend 3 hours looking for something to watch.
Nightmare.
10 minutes watching it and then falling asleep.
Yeah, I mean, like Dawn of the Dead, we have everything at our fingertips, right? And we can't make heads or tails of the situation.
Yeah.
Can't make it happen. So just so that the viewers are aware, you're watching 3 Northeast fellows. So we're all from New York, but we're in pretty close proximity to Pennsylvania. Adam's been to the Monroeville Mall. Tommy, I don't know about you. I haven't.
No.
Yeah, we got to get there soon. It just got bought.
Yeah.
Walmart, right?
Yeah, I've been there a few times. The first time I was there, it was on accident. I had to go to a trade show for a job that I was like a salesperson. And the whole way down there, I'm telling this guy who's like 20 years my senior, we got to go to the Monroeville Mall. We got to go to the Monroeville Mall. And he's like, we're on a trip. Nah, it's not happening, dude. And our hotel was in the goddamn parking lot of the Monroeville Mall.
Oh, wow.
The double tree that's still there, I think, to this day. And I got so high and like went to the mall for the first time after seeing this movie my whole life, and just walked around like I was in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And it was at nighttime too, so it was a very fun experience. It was great.
Oh, that's great. Security's following you around. Who the hell is
They
this
totally
guy who
were,
just
yeah,
keeps
yeah.
touching the walls?
Who's this guy filming with this tiny ass little like flip phone?
Yeah.
I've been back a couple times since. I went for the anniversary, and I think I'm going to go down this year for probably what's going to be the last Living Dead weekend there.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to set up a table.
Yeah. Oh, that's not a bad idea. I would like to go.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a road trip, Sean.
Let's do it.
Yeah. You know what, Tommy? You read my mind. I was thinking the same thing. Adam, you're going to get some company.
Yeah.
Because if it's not,
check dates.
yeah, if it's not this year, we blew it.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound great, and I don't know that a couple of Facebook groups of fans are going to be able to going to be enough to stop Walmart from developing that. So
No.
It's a shame, but
It is. It's happened in such phases though that like if you go there now, it's so different from when I went there the first time.
Mhm.
Like the Penny's is gone, and it's a movie theater now.
Mhm.
It doesn't even look the same unless you know where to go. And
Yeah.
the Fred Rogers stuff is for the most part all taken out. The play place and everything.
right.
Let me ask you guys what it is about Dawn of the Dead that makes it your favorite film. Adam, we'll start with you.
It's dreamy, man. It's a weird, dreamy movie where, I mean, I've had nightmares that are kind of like similar in scope, but like the concept of being in this wasteland of consumer goods that you could just walk around in if you could kill everything, or even just sort of like walk around them because they're kind of easy to get around unless they're in bigger numbers. It's just such a dreamy idea. I don't know. That's probably what's always got me. The size of the mall is so big, in comparison to like the characters and what they're psychologically going through. They can escape from it and they can go down to the arcade and, they can go, Peter can make everybody dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. At its core, that's really what I've always loved about the movie.
Tommy, what about you?
The movie it scared the shit out of me at 9 years old, and probably more so the beginning sequence of the film, which is really grim and dark. And the tone, obviously, of the film changes a couple of times as you go through. Like once you get to the mall, it's a different movie. That beginning scared the shit out of me. It's really dark and it's depressing, and the scene in the projects in the basement and going through the apartments. It's, I don't know, it really just informed a lot of, I guess, what I look for in movies now. Was influenced by that. And then I like the character arcs of Francine. I just think from a late 70s, the feminism and her going from this sort of helpless in the beginning when she doesn't have a weapon, and the tambourine zombie guy is making his way up there, and then later how she winds up being a hero, a heroine, if you will. I just love that that aspect of it. It's a really good story.
Yeah.
On top of mapped on top of this apocalyptic or situation.
Just think about it, guys. You've got Night of in 68, and just a landmark moment for horror. But we've got a single location, farmhouse location. You can tell. I mean, you can see the seams and the, hey guys, we're going to put on a show aspect to the filmmaking. I mean, it's very indie, and that is part of its charm. But for Romero then to really expand on the mythology and the universe. There's a definitive message in Night of. There's an even more resounding message in Dawn of. And it just seems like everything is just exponentially bigger and better, which is nuts when you think about it that it's still on an indie scale. I mean, doing the research for the film, I know that Dario Argento helped out tremendously. And Adam, I know you know this story as well because we've spoken about it in the past. You know, how Argento basically gave Romero, you know, like a house in the Italian countryside to write.
Set him up and said, write it.
Yeah. Secured international financing for him. Provided the score, you know, via Goblin, which is the better score. I know there's,
100%.
yeah. But I mean, you know, he's got the helping hand with Argento. But I don't want to put too much emphasis on that. I mean, I think that's fantastic, their collaboration. But just Romero just expanding on everything and having it work to the degree that it does, it still is astounding to me today, because typically you'll have filmmakers who make an indie feature and it's gangbusters. Everybody loves it. Maybe it wins in Cannes, or, you know, it cleans up at Sundance. And then a studio comes in and they open up a briefcase full of money, and then everything comes off the rails because it's like too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's how Romero stuck the landing with Dawn of, because even though everything was bigger and better, it was still just him, essentially. You know, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you feel like, oh, this is such a exponentially larger world that we're living in, and, you know, the message is bigger? I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. What are your thoughts on it, gang?
I think you're right. I mean, it's like you said, a night is so isolated to literally someone's house and backyard for the 90% of the movie, and yeah, Dawn's mostly in one location, but just the grandiose.
It's so big.
Grandiosity
the scale.
Of it.
And
the story. It's really kind of still fairly similar, I feel like, to Night of the Living Dead, and that it's hitting on the character points, the human points of being trapped, right? Because that's really what it's all about. All three movies are kind of just about being trapped. And
it's actually a great point.
Yeah, but I think that it's. What truly for me is so mind-blowing is, again, we're talking about a bunch of hippies here that much smaller band with Night of the Living Dead, but not by much. And for them to go into the Monroeville Mall and light the fucking Monroeville Mall every night. So that they could shoot this renegade mall movie, I think the first of its kind for the most part, because I mean they're so baffled by the mall's existence when they're in the helicopter. That's so new to society. It's just so wonderful. And I think that's a testament to happenstance, because I'm pretty sure that Romero just was friends with the guy that owned the mall or something, and he said, you know, you could make this movie here, and then he took him on a tour and showed him everything upstairs and all these little back entrances, and
it's
here we are talking about it 46 years later.
Yeah, right. It is kind of kismet. Yeah.
Got to be out by 8 a.m., you know? So I think their shooting schedule, they had to end by 6 so they can clean all the blood off of the marble floors, you know?
Wow, man.
It is wild. But I think that's, you know, like part of that, still that independent spirit, even though they have obviously a larger crew, assumedly, assuming a much larger budget. But there's that independent spirit that drove that film in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know all the details. I know there was another partner, I guess Richard Rubenstein, who was involved in producing the movie, who apparently he's a rights holder still, and there's a lot of legal nonsense with the film, which is why it's not on streaming.
Sort of the John Russo of this story.
I don't know all of the there. I'm by no means an expert, but definitely it was a different. There was a different, a whole different machine behind this, film, the way they made it. So, the other thing that I think, is interesting about this movie is that you get a sense of the scale of the epidemic, because in Night, you're isolated to the farmhouse, and in relation to the cemetery, it's right there. This the scale is much larger. You know, the reports on the news, and he's flying over all, you know, parts of Pennsylvania or wherever they're going, and you're seeing it's happening everywhere. I think he even says that it's everywhere. It's one of the things that Steven says when they're flying. So, you know, I think it was like the kind of the first time you got this, the whole world could be experiencing this at the same time, you know?
Yeah, it's a great point.
Frightening in and of itself.
And it just makes it that much more apocalyptic and takes that anxiety level and just cranks it to 11. I think just going back to Romero real quickly, whenever he got involved with studios and there was too much oversight, and there was honestly, it was a level up from that indie world that he lived in. He just every interview that I read, he's like, this is just miserable. You know, that's why he only really did films that he could, or his good films are the ones that he kept full control over. And he really gravitated toward working that way in the latter half of his career, because it just never worked with the studios for him. Just never worked.
And he was all the better for it, I think.
Oh, 100%. You're completely right.
Even down to films like Bruiser, which, you know, may not be great, but it's still a solid movie.
Oh, solid, yeah.
I don't think it would have come out quite as well if the studios got involved.
No, I feel like there's a small class in the 70s where it's you know, Tobe Hooper and it's Romero. Like these guys, they not so much Wes Craven. I mean, Wes Craven then of course just blew up after Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, but he had that, you know, that window in the 70s where they were producing these indie features and they were changing the face of horror. Each one of them, I mean, they would release a movie and it's like, well, this is the new bar set. This is the new bar set. So it's funny, you know, 1 for 3 hit rate of a guy who was able to transition into the studio system. But I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, it happened and we got great work from Craven later. You know, he did some dynamite stuff, but it's just, it's just interesting to me that you had 3 indie guys and only one of them was really able to break free of that.
Well, one of them worked for Fred Rogers and the others didn't, you know?
Yeah. There's the magic right there. That's it. All right. The film as a whole, you have to have favorite parts. Adam, when you're thinking of Dawn of the Dead, what immediately comes to mind? If you're telling someone who never saw it before, you're like, you got to check this out.
What immediately comes to mind is Roger flying down the escalator. I think that pretty much encapsulates the whole spirit of the film. It's a little goofy. It's a little relentless. It doesn't really give a shit about rules. And it's very fun.
It is.
You know?
It definitely is. What about you, Tommy?
You know, not to repeat myself, but it for me, it's the beginning, like starting with the red carpet, you know, that iconic scene, and it focused on the red carpet, and then, you know, it pans down to Francine and just the panic in the newsroom, and then leading into what happens in the project. So it's just the tone that is set there. I'm always a fan of sort of like that, you know, the ability for a filmmaker to create that sense of panic and that sense of doom that really sets the tone for the rest of the movie. But like, just, you know, specifically the projects itself and that scene in the basement with all of the corpses that the people who, you know, maybe it's their family members or people in the community, they're taking all the people who have turned and putting them in this basement, and they're all bound, and, you know, it's just really, really creepy, and it's sad. And even that, you know, the way, you know, Peter's not happy about blowing any of their brains out either. And it's just, you kind of felt just, I don't know, it just like that helplessness. It's just such a powerful, you know, the imagery of all of that. Yeah, that's like my favorite part of the movie is the beginning. The priest, like all of it is just like, it's just perfect. You know, I love the line, what's that?
Please go ahead.
No, the line that he says, you know, what does he say? So you are stronger than us, but pretty soon I think they'll be stronger than you. I just love that.
Yeah.
You know, I just love that line. You know, it's
the people
fantastic.
of 107 will do as you wish now.
Yeah.
The whole building is collapsed. It's basically saying, like, the military, the place is yours, but you're fucked.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know? And shout out to the real skeleton in that scene, by the way.
Yes, I was gonna say, yeah.
Which I don't know how they slid that one past the goalie.
Oh man, it's disturbing. You know, the one that's got the shroud over it, and it's just
It's such a nihilistic beginning. I love it. Now, had the whole film been like that, boy, I mean, that would have been, we would have aged.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if, I mean, yes, a lot of movies do keep a pace of darkness like that, and you come out of it and you're like exhausted, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I think, you know, the different segments are so different, you know, though I think the ending of the movie kind of gets back to that beginning sense of doom. And, you know, Peter is very similar, where he's really kind of shut down, and there's this sort of depression, you know, setting in, and it's dark. It gets dark again. I think, you know, once Roger gets bit and the whole thing, you know, kind of turns or changes. So I kind of like that. You have that middle section, which is very slapstick and kind of goofy. Yeah. You know, even when the bikers come in, it's a little goofy. You know,
the zombie gets a pie in the face.
Yeah. Right.
They stole the zombie's wallet.
But it's true. Romero takes it from super dark to then we almost have like you know, almost like a domestic drama. You know, when they're figuring out what their life's going to be like in the mall, then it goes into an adventure movie, an action movie. Then Roger gets bit. We go a little slapstick with the biker gang, but then that goes dark as well, because then they essentially get annihilated, and then the true ending of the film goes right back full circle to dark. So much so that the original ending was Peter committing suicide, and Francine committing suicide as well. There's a scene of her in the helicopter. All right, let me Adam, I know you and I discussed this previously. Let me make sure I have it right. There's a scene in the film where they stop for gas, and there's what's called the Frankenstein zombie, because his head is so elongated.
He's square.
He gets up on the apple crate, and it takes the top of his head off, which honestly for me is my favorite scenes of the movie.
Great kill. Yeah, it's brilliant.
When I see the Frankenstein zombie, I'm like, people, bring it in. I absolutely love it. That was supposed to go on Francine, and she was supposed to stick her head up into the helicopter rotors at the end. So you had a double suicide at the end of the movie, and I think Romero was just like, yeah, maybe this is a little too dark, you know.
And also a little unbelievable that a mother, you know, who's pregnant would kill herself. I don't buy that. She knows how to fly the helicopter, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. So I appreciate that he changed it, because I think you need a little ray of hope, and especially because we have the incredibly bleak and nihilistic ending to Night of the Living Dead. We have a little bit of hope at the end of Day Of, but I love it that it's always ambiguous. It's like, you know, we're going to make it, ... question mark, you know?
Yeah.
And we get that wonderful, like, patriotic, heroic music, that the canned library music that plays when Peter, like, gives It's like one of the great moments in cinema, in my opinion.
It's so good.
Funny. Yeah. Well, yeah. Speaking of the music, you know, it's there was a couple of parts where it really supports what's going on when Roger and Peter go down into the mall for the first time, and he's like, they flip all the switches, might as well turn them all on, you know. It's like, yeah, let's get a little music, and it's like, you know, it's this upbeat music, mall music, and then when they're in the sporting goods store, there's like a loop of like animal sounds and like Indians chanting. It's like just so weird and you know, like it just, I don't know, that kind of stuff. You know, Romero was really good at, you know, the soundtracking it so that it just kind of it's a little unsettling because it's so unusual, you know.
Yeah. And those, by the way, those music dials are still there we got to go into the
come on.
I swear to God, we got to go into the boiler room, and they're all still there, and you know, there's just a guy that now sits in that room and probably has no fucking idea about the dead.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's going to be a rush of people, you know, trying to get things out of that mall, you know, when they demolish it. You know, I know that there's a Facebook group for Dawn of the Dead, and you know, you mentioned the airport with the helicopter zombie. That little building was demolished, and people have gone there and taken the rocks and the bricks, and you know, it's wild, you know, that they're able
they
to
took
do
the
that.
escalators from the mall. They took there's the little bridge, the little wooden bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got that. There's a whole
That
thing
was
up
in
there,
the water.
Yeah. Somebody packed that up, and I think it went to the Living Dead Museum, which they've since moved out of. I believe, or they will be.
Okay.
I love that people who love the film habit, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's cool. I mean, even the, you know, the marble walls, those patterns are really distinct in a few places. And like every time I see pictures from Living Dead Weekend, people are posing in these hallways, and it's like the patterns it's exactly the same from the film. So I'm sure that stuff is going to be, you know, is going to be dismantled and looted out of there or sold, you know, at some point. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes down.
There's a great YouTube channel, WGON TV, I believe it is, which is connected to the guy that is involved with the Living Dead Weekend.
Okay.
He's got a lot of great videos of props that he's purchased off the internet, unboxings and stuff. But then there's some stuff of them taking like the escalator and some of the old pieces of the mall. It's a cool place, and I think it's just it's sad but it's poetic, you know, in our times that Walmart is taking it out, and
consumerism, right? That was
Romero would love it.
Yeah,
Romero would absolutely love it. He'd be like, "See."
Yep. Eventually, succumbed.
Let me ask you a question. So this movie comes out, and then of course we get what year was Day of? Was that 87?
84, I believe.
It was that early?
Yeah. And also, before we jump, we have to give the remembrance to Anthony DeLeo Jr., who's just passed away before we filmed this episode. Played Miguel,
right.
Dead.
Miguel, who really fucking sticks it to the man in that movie.
Right.
Such a great ending, man. And he was wonderful in that film. So another one gone from these three great movies.
Yeah. Well, and we lost David MG last year also. You know, who played Steven.
Yeah. But you know what? Their legacy lives on with these incredible films. I need to ask the both of you. So, taking the trilogy as a whole, what are the influences that you see to these films as far as what we see, you know, what we saw shortly after, say, in the 90s and 2000s, but also today? Because I have a couple that I could readily cite. I mean, Danny Boyle for sure, and that trilogy, which is going to turn into a quadrilogy soon. Actually, sorry, we're getting the third installment, and then I think that third installment is supposed to launch another 2, if I'm right.
Interesting. Okay.
Which, you know, let's see how the first one does, but it's Danny Boyle, so I'm cautiously optimistic.
Sure.
But, you know, I will say that I felt like there was an explosion of zombie movies, especially in the 80s, because as a result of maybe not so much Dawn of, but when Day of hit, I think a lot of the independent producers and the smaller studios were like, hey, think we might be able to do something here. And especially the foreign studios, they're like, all right, I see an opening. You could probably count the good ones on one hand. I'm a huge fan of Cemetery Man.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know that one.
Check it out, Tommy.
Okay.
Yeah, Rupert Everett.
Yeah.
It's Italian made. He's a caretaker of a cemetery, and every night the corpses come to life. Then he may or may not fall in love with a corpse. I don't want to spoil anything, bud. You're gonna have to check it out.
Cemetery Man. Okay. All right.
Check out Cemetery Man. You know, it kind of, I would say that it peters out a bit in the 2000s because you kind of get the CW-ification of horror movies. You know, where they're just kind of plucking kids off of Channel 11 here in New York and putting them in, you know, putting them in skimpy clothing, and someone's trying to slash him to death.
Mhm.
But then Zack Snyder, love him or hate him, I feel like he did kind of light the fuse to get zombie movies started all over again with what was it, 2004 with the Dawn of the Dead remake. What are your thoughts on the remake?
I mean, what does one say about the Dawn of the Dead remake? I think it's like, if it were called anything else, it would be a fine film. You know, it's good on its own merits. It's funny.
Yeah.
Times it's got good scares and good gore and everything. But I don't know. I just don't. It doesn't have the indie renegade feel that we're talking about. It doesn't have the scope. It doesn't. Again, it's like fucking white bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for I think the beginning is really good.
The first 10 minutes that's
the first 10 minutes of that movie. Again, you know, as we were talking about, just like sort of setting the stage, and the rest of it is, you know, it's like Dawn of the Dead light. You know, like it's never going to be as good. But there are a couple of things I think that stood out to me from that. Was I loved the guy that was in the other building that they were communicating with signs, and you know, like I thought that was like a cool thing. Yeah, it was clever. And then, you know, ultimately you see him as a zombie on the roof, which freaking sucks, right? And then I really liked the ending because it was hopeless. You know, the way that it ended, where they get on that boat and they get to the island, and then the camera drops. You know, I loved the way it was open-ended like that, and it lets you kind of imagine how that might have played out. I thought that was really cool. Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about the remake is that I think it did spark the imagination and got the wheels turning for, and we'll talk about the decomposing corpse in the room. It did open the door for The Walking Dead. Which, you know, whatever your opinion is on it, I'm a huge fan of the first few seasons and the comic book. Huge fan of the first few seasons. Like everything, you know, once the offshoots started to happen, then it just becomes a conglomerate and it eats itself, unintended, I suppose.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the correlation between the Dead trilogy and The Walking Dead? Because I feel like it owes everything to it.
Yeah, I mean, there would be no Walking Dead without the Romero films, without a doubt. And the fact that Nicotero, you know, was part of at least day of, you know, he actually was in the film, and he was part of the, you know, assisting Tom Savini. So, you know, it wouldn't exist. But, you know, if you look at like the direct cinematic influences, the airport scene where Peter has to kill the two children zombies, you know, is directly related to Rick, you know, episode 1, Dawn of the Dead, with this little girl, you know, dragging the bloody teddy bear and half of her face is rotten off, and he's gotta kill her. You know, it's like stuff like that. I think, you know, paying respect, and it's a nod to, you know, we wouldn't be here, you know, if it weren't for that. Now, I don't know the comics very well. I don't know if that scene was in the comics, but from whoever made that creative decision in the show, you know, it's fantastic. But even still, you know, I think the influences is evident in all of these like kind of apocalyptic shows. I don't know if you've seen The Last of Us, which, you know, that beginning scene, which is supposed to be like 1968, where it's like a scientist talking about this fungi, reminds me of exactly, you know, the scenes from Dawn of the Dead, when, you know, there's the scientist in the TV studio in the beginning, you know, talking to the broadcast guy. You know, it's, you know, those kind of nods, I think, are just, they just prove how much of an influence Romero, the writing, and the way he shot that stuff affected, you know, Walking Dead and beyond.
Yeah. There was a series on Netflix. I want to say it was called Black Summer, and it was only 2 seasons. The second season is okay, but the first season, you know, filmed in Canada and, you know, subbing in for the States, you know, it's got an indie feel to it, but it is like the first 10-15 minutes of Dawn of the Dead, for an entire season.
Mhm.
Their show is so bleak and nihilistic, and the second you just see a little bit of daylight for like, oh, I think everything's going to be okay, it's completely out the window. Black Summer, but it's really good. But boy, oh boy, it's a great series to watch, but it's a bit of a tough hang because it's bleak as hell. It's really bleak, but it is good. It really is. So you get Romero influence is happening all over the place. It's going to continue to happen. I feel like once the new Danny Boyle,
right, Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, say more about that.
Yeah, I think that's another one that, like, as much as it influenced Walking Dead, and Walking Dead has its reverberations in our lexicon now, I think Shaun of the Dead does too.
Yeah.
In a way that no other film has. Well, Return of the Living Dead was its own thing, and I love Return of the Living Dead, and Return of the Living Dead 2 is fucking awesome in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's goofy, but it's great. But yeah, it's just a different sort of a thing. And Shaun of the Dead it's such a nod. I mean, obviously in the title, but like there are so many allusions to Romero's films throughout it that aren't just slapstick in your face. You know, this guy's name is Ken Foray or whatever. You know, that kind of shit. It's just such a love letter to George specifically.
Yeah.
You know, that I think that came out at a time when he had, if I'm not mistaken, had just done Land of the Dead, which we're also forgetting to talk about here.
We did. We forgot about that.
That dropped at a time when no one fucking thought George Romero was ever going to make a zombie movie again. And, you know, it's loaded to the gills with money and scope and some pretty good acting. And that came out, I think, just a little bit before Shaun of the Dead. And I don't know if
you're right.
Energize it, but Shaun of the Dead's impact on horror genre and this slapstick crossover shit, it's just undeniable.
It's so good.
Actually, no, it came out before that because they ended up being in Land of the Dead.
You're right.
Yeah.
But it was shortly after. I think we're only talking about a year.
Probably around the same time, but I just remember they had cameras.
But it had enough of an impact that he put him in the movie, right? So
right.
Yeah. Land is good. You know, the thing I always wondered, and I'm sure maybe someone had asked him about this, but I don't know, is that in Night and in Dawn, you are witnessing the beginning of it happening. You know, the beginning of the outbreak, and I never really understood why Dawn did that, because he did it 10 years prior in Night. But then in Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead, it's been going on for, an extended period of time. Indeterminate, they don't really say. But I always wondered why he did it. It was almost, he showed you the start twice in two different ways.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah, it's almost like Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead could exist in the same timeline, too.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Land of the Dead has those great residential scenes where they're like, which we don't really get in any of his other movies, where there's just zombies in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Standing around, which I love that. Great.
Yeah.
It's funny, we get these like pops where zombie films are so prevalent and so popular. It seems like we're in a little bit of a quiet point right now, which we should probably enjoy. Let people, sharpen up their creativity and, collect their resources. But I'm sure things are going to explode fairly soon after those Boyle films come out, because it just, if they make money, then you're just going to see all studios racing toward their new zombie property. So, point of diminishing returns. We'll see what happens.
Well, there's if you haven't seen it, there's a great movie on Shudder called Mads, M-A-D.
Oh, I love it.
Oh,
Adam, it's waiting for you.
Dude, you got to. I was blown away by how good it was. And it's like an outbreak movie. It's more, maybe it's a disease, whatever it is, but it's messed up. And it's a single take. Blow your mind. It's so, so good.
Wow.
And again, it has one of those beginning, that just catches you off guard. And then the ending, the closing shot of that it's just brilliant. It's brilliant the way they did it. I love that. I thought it was fantastic. Really good.
French movie, Adam. It's great. I wrote the review for for Macabre Daily. Look. Sometimes it's great. I mean, it's always great working for Macabre Daily, but sometimes it's really great because you get an advanced screener of it. So I saw that about a month before it came out. I was telling everyone, I'm like, this fucking movie coming out in a month. You better be glued to your set. It's for the jaded zombie fan in all of us who's like, I've seen it all. What could surprise me? Check this.
Yeah. Me. That sounds like me.
Yeah. There you go. All right, guys. Look, I just want to thank you both for coming on. This was a fun time. Don't be surprised if I throw another movie out to the two of you.
Cool.
Like,
blast, yeah.
you guys want to come back and we'll talk the shit out of this one?
I have to ask,
Please.
slow zombie or fast zombie? Anybody, what are your feelings?
If it's done well, I don't care.
Okay.
I gotta go OG.
You going OG?
Slow zombie, man. It's illogical, and that's what's kind of scary about it. Is it's like so easy to just kind of let your guard down. Like, it's just 15 zombies. It'll be fine.
Like you can almost get out of their way until you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
The fast moving zombies, it's a bloodbath.
Yeah, well, that was Zack Snyder's Dawn. They were fast, right?
Yeah.
You know what? If I gotta run, I'm fucking dead. I just, I gotta be honest. If that's what's happening, I'm checking out. It's not
a wrap for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go about a half block.
Yeah.
I'll bite myself.
That's
I'll eke that last couple, half mile out real hard, but I'm going down.
Yeah, then I'm going down pretty hard. Let me show everybody what they need to do. Their pleasurable assignment. We've got the usher, Adam Wakefield. Thank you so much. Tommy Spero. Check this art out, everybody. Just take a look at that. Just soak that in. It's so good.
Thank you.
Do me a favor, Adam. We're going to start with you. I already know the answer to this, but our viewers and our readers might not. Let everybody know what you got on the horizon.
Yeah, so gonna try to get out there with the Usher this year, get some appearances next year. I have a short story coming out called The Elephant in the Room in September. And then The Werewolves of Elder is my second novel, and that's coming out next summer.
That's what I love to hear. You had me at werewolves, sir. Tommy, how about you?
We're heading into convention season, so I'll be out exhibiting and vending with my artwork at a bunch of different places, starting with New Jersey HorrorCon in a couple of weeks, beginning of March. Then I'm trying some different stuff. Trenton Punk Rock Flea Market in April. I'll be at Dark Force Fest, which is a goth music festival in Parsippany, New Jersey. So I'll be doing all that stuff. I'm also starting to establish some relationships with some independent movie productions, and I'm doing some artwork now for a movie coming up called Crimson Harvest. That's an independent. Felissa Rose will be in that, and also Robert Mukes that was in House of a Thousand Corpses. Oh, cool. And I'm going to be working with another independent filmmaker here on Long Island who's doing a horror Friday the 13th fan film. So it's a sequel called Victim No More Part 2. Rumor has it I may actually have a small part in that movie, maybe. And my daughter Celia also has a role in that film, so I'll get some acting coaching from her. So, and I will have a if I pass the audition, I will die in the movie. So, it's like full circle for me, to get that opportunity. So it should be pretty cool. And I'm dabbling in a bunch of different artwork. I'm trying some different styles now, so you'll see some stuff happening.
I can't wait because I'm always blown away from both of you.
Thank you,
Adam. Cannot wait for the new novel. Tommy, every time you post something at Bowman Butcher, I can't wait to see the new stuff. So thank you guys both for coming on. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
And until we do it again.
Sounds good.
Take care, everyone. Macabre Daily out.